It was Easter, and we were at my parents' house. Daniel, my husband, was up in the attic helping with some cleaning. Then all of a sudden, his face went pale. He whispered, "Don't react. Wait until your mom's gone." And then I saw what he had uncovered. I didn't break down. Instead, I acted. 3 days later, my parents were frantically on the phone with their lawyer. I'd always thought if my world ever shifted in a single instant, truly shifted, not like a new haircut or a breakup, there'd be some sort of soundtrack, a dramatic swell, maybe thunder, something cinematic. But no, there was only dust. There was a pile of boxes marked Christmas stuff. Probably my mom humming along to Michael Bublé in the background, as if she wasn't standing on top of years of things no one wanted to talk about. Old tensions, emotional silence. No dramatic bang, just my heartbeat doing something I didn't yet have words for. The attic looked unchanged, still that same space where old ribbons, discarded decorations, and quiet shame went to disappear. My dad had talked about clearing it out, in that way he always does, the tone that suggests credit for a job he hasn't touched. I said sure, like I always do. Daniel had offered to help, of course. That's who he is. He shows up, especially when others pretend not to see. I was still there, elbow deep in a bin of knotted, yellowing extension cords. Mom was off in the far corner digging through a tub of garlands, muttering about mice. Daniel had moved to the other side, quietly making himself useful in his soft, dependable way. That's when I noticed the stillness. He wasn't moving. I looked up and saw him, crouched behind a pile of boxes, his eyes fixed on something, unblinking, breathless. "Daniel," I called. He shifted just enough to catch my gaze. His face had lost all color. Then he stood, slowly, and came over to me. He knelt down beside me and murmured, "Don't react. Wait until your mom leaves." That was the moment I felt it. Not just unease. This was serious. The kind of serious that makes your body forget how to move. He didn't say, "Come look." Didn't whisper, "You need to see this. Just don't react." That's when my chest started burning, like my heart had pulled in a sharp breath and wouldn't let it go. "What is it?" I asked, trying to hold my voice steady. Daniel didn't respond. He glanced at my mom, now humming something else, Mariah Carey this time, which somehow made everything feel even worse. She was just a few feet away, carefully wrapping old figurines in bubble wrap like she was handling fragile antiques, not relics of buried secrets. "Not here," Daniel said. "We need her gone." I stood up like I was on autopilot, walked over to the top of the stairs and called down, "Hey, Mom, can you check if we still have that vacuum with the hose? Might be easier than using the broom." She replied cheerfully, sing-songy as always, and headed downstairs. Like this was just another day, not the beginning of everything falling apart. The moment she vanished, Daniel rose and pointed. There was a gap behind the insulation, barely noticeable, like a crease in the wall someone had tried to erase. Boxes had been shoved in front of it, a rolled-up carpet tossed on top like a cover for something bruised and hidden. Daniel didn't touch it. He only stepped aside and watched me. I moved the boxes with hands that didn't feel like mine. There was a cardboard box shoved in sideways. Nothing fancy, just taped shut, the flaps a little loose, like it had been opened recently and closed in a hurry. I pulled it out and lifted the lid inside a folder, cream-colored, slightly creased, neat, tidy. I picked it up. It felt too heavy for what it was. My fingers were sweating. I flipped it over. My full name was printed on the front. Daniel didn't say anything, but I didn't need him to. I looked at his face, tight, unreadable, and I knew he'd seen this already. He must have opened it just enough to understand, just enough to know I needed to see it for myself. The date, underneath my name, stopped me cold. 19 years ago. I opened it, not all the way, just enough to see the header. The formatting, like a page deliberately printed for legal use. Daniel leaned in and tapped a section with his finger gently. I read a single sentence, maybe less. Then I stopped reading. My body didn't move, but it felt like my brain had taken a step backward. The air in the attic changed, not physically, emotionally. It felt like someone had switched on a light. Didn't know, was there, my ears started ringing. I could still hear Michael Bublé downstairs, my mom laughing at her own joke, my dad probably pretending not to hear anything. Eventually, I whispered, "We need to leave, please now." Daniel nodded. We folded the folder, tucked it inside my coat like it had always been there, and walked downstairs in silence. My mom was at the base of the stairs holding the vacuum and asking something about whether we needed the upholstery attachment. Something came up. I said, "You're leaving already," she said, blinking like she didn't understand, like this wasn't just another day of pretending we're all fine. We'll be back later. Dad didn't look up from his crossword. We kissed goodbye, like everything was fine. Daniel smiled, like everything was normal. My mom reminded me to take leftovers because she always does. I didn't hear what she said after that. We walked to the car, got in, closed the doors. I didn't say anything. Daniel didn't ask. The folder dug into my ribs, like it had become part of me. Something had just come undone, or maybe something had finally fallen into place. I didn't know yet. All I knew was that this wasn't over, not even close. I used to think all younger siblings felt like background characters, like our main role was to react to the plot happening to someone else. But then I grew up and realized, no, sometimes the spotlight just genuinely never swings your way. My sister Natalie was born 4 years before me, and apparently 400 years wiser. From the moment I had language, I understood that she was the reference point. Everything about me was filtered through her. Natalie liked math. I was more creative. Natalie made straight A's. I had a good attitude. Natalie got a trophy. I got a participation ribbon and a reminder to smile for the photo. It wasn't cruelty. It was subtler than that. My parents, my mom especially, had a way of comparing us without sounding like they were doing it, like they were just noticing something like the weather, and I, being the observant little sponge I was, learned to stop asking for too much space or attention or breath. Natalie's life took off like something you'd read in a lifestyle blog and roll your eyes at. She got a scholarship to some competitive business program, one of those ones that's hard to pronounce and always sounds more expensive than it should be. There was a photo of her holding a certificate with her name on it, beaming Mom, standing next to her like she just personally handed her the future after graduation. Natalie launched her own company, a wellness and productivity coaching business, mindfulness journaling. Digital planners, clean fonts, curated lighting. It had vision statements and Instagram testimonials before it had walls. It worked immediately. She got grants, clients, interviews, the kind of traction that made people say things like, "She's a natural." And some people are just built for this, and the more successful she got, the more impossible she became. She was arrogant in the kind of way people forgive if they're photogenic and good with a microphone. She started interrupting people mid-sentence, correcting them in casual conversation, throwing around words like energy alignment, as if the rest of us were just trying to keep up. She called me cute once for still renting, as in, "Oh my God, that's so cute. You're still in that little apartment, right?" Like I was a rescue dog with a good attitude. My mom was obsessed, not proud, obsessed. She didn't just support it, she followed it. She kept copies of the course booklets. She reposted quotes on Facebook. She said things like, "Natalie's changing lives," as if we were all part of a religion, and Natalie was the woman on the stage with the mic. She asked how the business was going, constantly. She gave her marketing advice. She read all the testimonials out loud, like bedtime stories. She didn't ask me much. She didn't know what I did for work. Not really. Sometimes she got the job title, right? Sometimes she didn't. I stopped correcting her around 2019. Natalie didn't ask either, unless it was in that half-laughing performative way, like she was including me out of obligation. And then when I'd answer, she'd nod, vaguely say, "Oh, that's good for you," and change the subject. There was one person who didn't treat me like a placeholder. Sylvia, I was told she was my great aunt, though she never felt distant like that. She felt close, steady, like someone who remembered things about you that you hadn't said out loud. Her house smelled like lemon soap and old books. She had this glass-fronted cabinet full of teacups she never used, and photo frames with nobody in them. She listened more than she talked, which made her the exact opposite of everyone else in my family. She gave me birthday cards with folded bills inside, asked what I was reading, took me for walks, and called me clever in a way that didn't feel like filler. Once in her garden, she leaned down and said, "Maybe. This place will be yours one day." I was 7. I didn't know what she meant. I just liked how it sounded. She died when I was 9. I don't remember seeing her sick. I just remember one day she was there and then she wasn't after the funeral. My parents told me she'd had debts, that her big house was mostly illusion, that there was nothing left to inherit. She lived big, but she owed bigger, my mom said, like it was wisdom. They repeated it often enough that it started to sound rehearsed. I remember nodding and saying nothing. I remember stopping myself from asking if I could still wear the bracelet. She gave me in the car. I opened the folder. There was no dramatic breath-holding moment. No slow turning of the pages. I just opened it. I needed to see it. I needed something to tell me I hadn't imagined the weight of Daniel's voice when he'd said, "You need to see this." My name was at the top, the date 19 years ago. It was a trust created by Sylvia. The documents were legal, formal, embossed with the kind of seals that mean something. The trust was in my name. Sylvia had named Carol and Richard, my parents, or so I thought. As guardians and financial trustees, the terms were clear. They were to disclose everything on my 18th birthday. The assets, whatever they were mine. There was also a letter. It was folded between the pages, tucked carefully, like someone was hoping it would survive being ignored. I opened it. My dearest Mara, if you're reading this, then I'm already gone. And the people who raised you have decided that now is the time for you to finally learn the truth. I pray they've told it all. You deserve to know exactly who you are. My name is Sylvia. You've always known me as your great aunt, but in reality, I am your grandmother. Your mother, Celia, was my daughter. She passed away when you were very young, too young to have real memories of her, but not too young to be held in her memory. After Celia died, your Aunt Carol and her husband Richard took you in. Carol is Celia's half-sister, and Richard, her brother-in-law. They became your guardians, and for that, I was genuinely thankful. But it was my explicit wish, clearly stated, that you would be told the truth once you turned 18. They didn't give birth to you. You were born to Celia, and to me. I created this trust so you would have something solid, a foundation, something your mother never had, something you could grow from, a future that would be entirely yours. I hope they honored that. I hope this was given to you on your 18th birthday, as I asked. And more than anything, I hope you've never gone through life feeling like you came second. With all the love I have, Sylvia. I just stared at the letter, the signature, the words. You were not born to them. And it felt like my entire life tilted, just slightly, off-center. Daniel sat beside me, saying nothing. I folded the letter slowly and slid it back into the folder. Then I just sat still, trying to breathe, like it was something new I had to figure out how to do. The lawyer didn't even flinch when I handed him the folder. He gave a slow, measured nod, as if this sort of thing happened more often than anyone would care to admit. Then he said, "All right, first step is to file a formal demand for accounting. They're legally required to give you a full financial breakdown." Daniel remained next to me, quiet, his hand resting gently on my leg. I didn't have much to say either, just nodded. It felt like I was relearning how to exist, but everything was submerged, like I was underwater. The letter was sent out later that week. I imagined it landing on their doorstep, neatly sealed in a plain envelope, the return address typed in sharp black ink. Very formal, very civil, a grenade disguised as a question. They didn't call right away, not until day 2. At exactly 10 o'clock a.m., my phone lit up. Mom. I let it ring once before picking up. Her tone was sharp from the very first word. Are you serious? Not hello, not what's going on, just straight up indignation. You're suing us? She snapped. After everything we've done for you? I didn't reply. She got louder. You ungrateful little girl. You wouldn't even be here if it weren't for us. I nearly laughed, not because it was humorous, but because it was familiar. That tone, that volume shift, that patented brand of maternal outrage that always made me feel like a live wire waiting to snap. Mom, I said, my voice flat, don't call me that. Not right now. In the background, I could hear movement, footsteps. I pictured her pacing across the kitchen, cordless phone clutched tightly in one hand, and fury burning in the other. I wondered if she was still wearing that apron with the lemons on it. We took you in, she said. We raised you. We paid for your food. Do you know how much it costs to raise a child? And this is how you thank us it wasn't yours to pay with? There was a pause, just long enough to know I'd hit something. Then, Richard's voice cut in from the background. Tell her we'll fight it. We're not letting her destroy everything they were on speaker. Of course they were. You're not a victim, Mara, Carol snapped. We did what we had to do. It wasn't that much money. I will see how much when the accounting comes in, I said. She scoffed. Oh, please. You think this is going to fix you. You think getting a few dollars makes up for being a miserable little. I hung up. Daniel watched me from the kitchen, leaning against the counter, arms folded. He didn't ask what she said. He didn't need to. Later, I caught myself thinking the words Mom and Dad, again out of habit, like my brain hadn't caught up with the truth. I stopped mid-thought, Carol Richard. I don't want to call them Mom and Dad anymore, not after what they did not, after what they took. But it's hard to untangle 30 years of language from your mouth, harder still to do it from your memory. 2 days later, they showed up, no warning. Just a knock at the door. Sharp and familiar, when I opened it, they were both standing there, smiling, like nothing had happened. Carol held a Tupperware container cookies, probably the kind she made when I was sick or quiet or taking up too much space. We thought we'd talk face to face, she said. Like a family, Daniel stayed in the next room. He trusts me to hold my own. I let them in because I wanted to see what they look like when they lied in person. Carol sat on the couch and started talking immediately. Words like misunderstanding, overreaction, dramatic. Richard just stood with his arms crossed like he was waiting for someone to tell him he was right. You're blowing this out of proportion, Carol said. It wasn't some crime we made choices as parents. You weren't supposed to make those choices for me. Don't get smart. I didn't answer. You've always been sensitive, she said. You always needed everything spelled out for you. Maybe if you'd asked more questions when I was a child. She rolled her eyes, like I was being impossible. We didn't want to traumatize you. You were so fragile back then. Richard spoke for the first time. We gave you a life. I stood. Where did the money go? Carol blinked. What the trust? Where did it go? Silence did it go. To Natalie. Carol's jaw tightened. You think we're going to stand here and justify every choice we made for you? You mean the choices you made without me? You weren't ready, she snapped. We used it where it mattered. So it did go to Natalie. Richard stepped in, voice low and final. It went to someone who deserved it. That was it. That was it. That was the moment. I didn't say anything else. I opened the door and waited. They stood there for a second too long, as if daring me to flinch. You're not our daughter anymore, Carol said. Hope you're happy. She left the cookies on the table on her way out. That night, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote a message to my lawyer. Proceed with the suit, include Natalie. Daniel didn't ask what happened. He just poured me tea and sat down across from me like he was going to stay as long as it took. They offered me a deal, $150. Zausen wired directly. If I dropped the case and let this whole thing go, their words, not mine, it came in an email. No greeting, no apology, just numbers and the softest legal threat you can write in 12-point font. Daniel read it first and slid the laptop across the table like it might bite. That's more than enough, the message said. You didn't earn it anyway. There was a line at the end. I kept rereading. You were never the ambitious one, cute. I didn't respond. 2 days later, I saw Natalie's face on my screen. It was one of those women to watch videos filtered, lighting tasteful bookshelf. Just the right amount of eyeliner. She was being interviewed in her office, or at least a room designed to look like an office and not a branded shrine to herself. No one gave me anything. She said I built this business with grit, with failure, with persistence. I watched in silence. She smiled, like she believed it. If you want something, she added, you have to earn it. I closed the tab, called my lawyer. We're going all the way. Natalie called me the next morning. I didn't answer. She called again by the third call. I picked up. What the hell is wrong with you? No hello, no. Warm up. Just Natalie spitting fury down the line like she'd been rehearsing it in front of a mirror. You're dragging my name through the dirt. You're obsessed. You always have been. Okay, you don't get to ruin my career because you couldn't build one yourself. Ask Mom and Dad where the money came from. Silence and then not silence. Worse, yeah, she said. I found out. So what the scholarship paid for school, but it was still a competitive program. I earned my place, the grants helped launch the business, but that didn't build my ideas. I did that. It was just money. It doesn't mean I'm not successful. I didn't argue. I let her hang up the court date, came faster than I thought it would. I didn't go to every hearing, just the one that mattered. The judge was a woman with silver hair and no time for emotion, my lawyer walked her through the trust records, the bank statements, the transfers, the shell accounts, the payments marked scholarship fund that went straight into Natalie's tuition. The marketing budgets labeled business grants that came directly from my name. It was all there, paper trails, don't lie. Natalie's lawyer tried the sympathy angle. She was just a kid. She didn't understand. But the records made it clear she'd known for years. Known and said nothing. Known. Yet she still made comments like, "No one gave me anything," even after benefiting from my trust. The court's decision was straightforward. The business would be liquidated, and whatever assets remained would go to me. Carol and Richard were left to handle everything else. They stayed silent as the judgment was delivered. Carol's hands rested motionless in her lap, while Richard stared ahead as if watching a fire rage in front of him, powerless to stop it. 2 weeks later, I received the transfer. It wasn't the full amount, but it was enough. Enough to begin again. Enough to breathe without constantly wondering what had been taken from me. The rest trickled in through whispers, quiet rumors, messages from names I hadn't seen in ages. A short article, tucked away on page 6 of the local newspaper, talking about a private decision to shut down the business. No comments, no corrections, just silence. They sold the house too. It wasn't made public, but I heard. Word always travels when people considered pillars of the community suddenly downsized to a modest rental 2 towns away. Natalie moved back in with them. Apparently she's recalibrating, which is hilarious, considering that's what she used to call her $309 online course for people who had just been dumped or fired. Then came one final message, an email from Carol. No subject line, just a sentence in the body. "You've destroyed everything. You were never one of us." I deleted it before Daniel had the chance to see. There are nights I can't sleep. When that happens, I take out Sylvia's letter. It's worn now, one corner faded and soft, but I still read it as if it might say something new. Not because I need closure, but because it's the only thing in all of this that was ever truly meant for me. I haven't shared my next move with anyone. I don't feel like I need to. Honestly, I'm not ready to build anything right now. I just want to stand still for a moment and finally feel like the ground under my feet belongs to me. I never imagined I'd feel this at peace. Not after the court hearings, not after bank statements and turning old family photographs into legal evidence. But here I am. Carol and Richard haven't reached out since the ruling. Natalie's been silent too. I'm okay with that. The peace I have now speaks louder than their silence ever did. We moved, a smaller house, but bigger windows. Daniel cooks more often now. I laugh more. I received everything. The business, the accounts, the emergency fund, the one that was supposedly never intended for me, even the $150,000 they once offered just to make me disappear. I accepted it, all of it. I thought I might feel shame. I don't. They spent years lying to me. And that money? It should have always been mine. Now it is. What will I do with it? I'm not sure yet. Maybe I'll travel. Maybe I'll finally sleep without grinding my teeth through the night. I met with Marisol, one of Celia's old friends. We had coffee. She brought pictures and told me Celia had been wild, full of creativity, and absolutely in love with me. That's all I needed to hear. There's nothing left unfinished. What was mine is finally in my hands, and I'm fully standing in it now. Did I go too far or maybe not far enough? Comment below, and don't forget to subscribe.